Undue influence is a serious issue that happens with the elderly and sometimes other people that have are mentally compromised. It's a situation upon which somebody may not be mentally incompetent, so they can still enter into contracts for themselves, but one person has so much control over that person that they can supplant their free will. And this comes out a lot in estate planning issues where people are concerned that one of their relatives may have taken advantage of mom or dad or their uncle or aunt, that because they were the local person and they got unfair distribution of the inheritance, and they say the family inheritance. This might also happen in a situation where it might be a relative, or it could be a widow or a widower, being widow being the mom or the widower being the dad, takes up with somebody else younger after their spouse has passed. And in that situation, there's hurt feelings, certainly in regards to that. While the vows are till death do you part, people still feel pretty strongly about dad or mom getting into a new relationship, particularly if the person is the age of their adult children. Sometimes they might be 20 years younger than the spouse that's involved. Second, relationships often have a little more self-interest perhaps in it, or perceived self-interest, than what happens in a first relationship with the first marriage. When you're in your 20s and 30s and getting married, people are often in a situation where they like the other person, but they're also getting something out of it. And you can have situations where the guy is taking up with somebody that's 20 years younger, and he's getting a nurse. And that's what he's thinking about. He's thinking about somebody who's going to take care of him and keep him out of a nursing home. And she's thinking about somebody that can financially provide for her. So they both have some selfish interests, and the courts recognize that, and that's not good enough for undue influence. Undue influence is really supplanting the free will of the person. I actually had a case where I defended one of these situations where there was an allegation by an adult child that was very upset with somebody that was 20 years junior taking up with dad, and dad did want to stay out of a nursing home, and while their caregiver, 60-some-odd-year-old woman, was certainly saying that it was love, the courts found, understandably, that she had some self-interest in it. Would she have loved him if he was a homeless person? Probably not. Would he have liked the relationship purely if he still would have to go into a nursing home? Probably not. So in that situation, they both had self-interest that they were perpetuating with the relationship, and she wasn't unduly influencing him. In that situation, these cases are very fact-specific. I made sure that I went through, they had a 55 and over community, and fortunately they had a dog too. I looked for all these situations. So they got out and they talked to their neighbors, and talking to the neighbors and finding out exactly what was going on with the relationship mattered. Were they fighting all the time? No, they weren't fighting along. They were getting along very well with each other. Was he getting out in the community and talking to his fellow community members? When the weather was good, he was out there and he was talking regularly. Who was doing the banking and the financing? He was. He was the decedent, was dealing with all of this stuff online, and the woman didn't know how to, frankly, turn on their computer. All of that type of stuff mattered. The other side had an expert. They had a psychiatrist that went and said he was unduly influenced, but my overwhelming factual issues proved otherwise, and it was a 5-day trial, and we were successful, and there was a lot of money involved in regards to it. Went up to the Supreme Court. The other side was saying it was a family inheritance. One of their arguments that was completely a mistake was saying mom and dad had amassed this wealth over their lifetime. Mom passes away, the children are entitled to something. No, you aren't. Unless there's a estate plan that says otherwise, there is no such thing as a family inheritance in New Hampshire. People can make their own decisions in regards to that. One of the things that in that particular case that I learned, and she's moved on out of state right now, she didn't like the 60-year-old person, but she still could have been part of dad's life. Realities with families is you don't like everything that your parents or your children are doing, but they're still family. And if she kept with the relationship, she probably would have been remembered in the will, and she frankly lost out in the last 4 years of a wonderful man's life.